we go. Almost ready for this.
It's 11:59 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
And welcome, everybody, to our Daily Gun Show. Hopefully everything's working okay with the audio. The co-host woke up late and is now getting really sleepy. Nothing but excuses this morning from him. So we're getting started here with Content Creator Workshop again this Tuesday. I like to go live on Tuesdays and chat up how to do this stuff, because it's no secret. It's like fishing. It's like playing guitar. There's lots of ways to do it. You know, what you think is good, somebody else thinks bad, or somebody else thinks it's great, somebody else thinks it's horrible, but who cares? You can, you're able to participate, especially in 2024. Probably important, probably useful. If not, it's just an interesting thing to do, or maybe it's some therapeutic thing to do. Maybe it's a financially productive thing to do. Who knows? Whatever it is you're going to be into, let's chat about it a little bit today. And there we go. I'm trying to move the things out of the way there so the puppy can lay down. And there you go. Now the puppy's going to fall asleep. We'll get into the show here. Chris from 740 is joining us. Welcome. Hope you're having a good day. Probably working. Okay, we got tail wagging in effect. So I think we're ready to start the show here. Oh, you know what? Oh, I forgot about that. I was going to feed them a little earlier today, and I didn't. So they're actually running on no food right now. So we'll see how long this lasts. But we aren't going to let take too long, because one of the things we'll get into here at some point today is that we like to do this show on Tuesday mornings as opposed to some other time during the week, because Cape Gunworks does the the 2A Tuesday segment of the Grace Curley Show on Tuesdays. And we like to do this show as an intro to that show. So let me show you what I mean by that. I'm going to open up our own show that we're in right now. Don't be afraid. It's okay. I know a lot of other people won't do this in front of you, but we're going to go ahead and do that. Show that we're in right now. Oops. So there, we're in our own show now. Now we're going to just slip inside of our own show. Just going to peel back the skin and look at the robot insides. And I forgot to do this anyway. So we're going to go down here and jam this thing over to the Daily Gun Show podcast and to a media workshop. Boom. So now we'll save those. And now this has been tagged with those two playlists. Are you using your playlists? Chris is back at home and reloading ammo. Right on. So let's see. We've got, well, what time is it out there? It's the middle of the day by you. Let's see, we've got the communication tab. We're going to go down to the redirect section there and put the link to Toby's show, and then we'll save that. And now at the end of this show, it will recommend everybody go over and check out their show. If you want to do it as humans, awesome. I talk about it, and that way the podcast hears about it. The transcription of the podcast gets it written down. That's part of the mechanism we're striving for here. But really the mechanism here that we just did is connect our show over to Toby's channel and his show, which is connected to Grace's show. And that's what it's all about. That's how the internet works. That's why it's called an internet, because everything is interconnected like a big net. And you can either just walk around on it. You're free to do that, but you're allowed to tie new knots in that net. You're allowed to make that net stronger and make it more resilient by tying more knots in it. And that's what this show does. That's what most of our projects are all about. Okay, so that being said, we don't need to be in our own show anymore, so we'll close out of there. But that's one of the reasons we do it on Tuesday mornings. And what we're going to be taking a look at today is our Substack blog. So Substack, Sharon told me about this years ago, and I started using it. And I'm glad we did, because it is a pretty good way to keep in touch with a bunch of different, well, not keep in touch, but keep up to date, I guess, on different blogs out there of different people's projects. And people have been subscribing to ours. This is probably telling us that people have subscribed to our blog. That's cool. Thanks for that. There's some really neat dashboards and stuff. If anybody's considering or is using Substack and would like to chat about dashboards and stuff, there's actually quite a bit of analytics over here. I'm almost going to say nothing's Google level, but some of the best stuff I've seen, really. I'm not saying I've seen everything, so it just could be that it's new, but of all the stuff I've seen in the past, let's put it that way, the analytics over here are pretty nice. So it's really cool to see as more people show, or I guess share and use the Substack as a way to check out our stuff, then it's neat to see that those numbers grow. Anyway, we're using Substack because it gives me the best formatting. Like, I just like the way that it looks here on the screen. Can you hear that? That's probably an A10. They haul ass over the house sometimes. I think it's probably depending on what part of the class they're in or something. That's interesting. When that A10 flew by, my internet went bad. You think they got signal blockers in them? Maybe I don't have bad internet. Maybe the Air Force is just messing with me. All right, so we're going to use Substack because I like the formatting. For the people here that are watching it live, Krabby Turtles out there, welcome. And if you're watching live, I don't do these shows as videos and then edit them and make them all fancy. I like live. I value the interactive nature of the internet. So thanks for the people that come by and chat, be part of the show, interact with it, so to speak. On the other hand, we don't do a bunch of cheesy like polls and things. I mean, we do polls once in a while, but we don't do stuff like intentionally just to get you to work on your end of the thing there. So feel free to, but you're by no means obligated. But if you want to let us know what part of the country you're in, or what kind of content creation hurdles or plateaus you might be on, there's things that can get in your way, and then there's things that just make it look blah. And you know what? In 2024, I like to put 2024 on the end of everything, because content creation in the old days was different. At one point it would have been a ink and pen, right? Like, now we have the computers and now we have cell phones. So things are getting different all the time. And the people, the best book ever can be written, but if nobody reads books anymore, right? It's part of it is about what people are doing. So in 2024, you might have different situations than you did 2 years ago, or you may have discovered something that other people haven't found yet. So feel free to share, and we can chat about that stuff. But we're going to be talking about the tools for content creation in 2024. I usually like to ask robots. We're now paying for GPT-40. So thanks to our Patreons who help us with the software and the servers and keeping things going as far as our different projects. We decided to start paying for GPT for a little while. I paid for it when it first came out and then quit because it was expensive and I was poor. But they added a feature where it'll remember things, and depending on what's, how much work we're doing, what we're working on, I'm curious to see how much more useful the information might be, I guess, if the robot can start to remember. Oh, okay, you guys. I don't know why I even stream on the two channels. I only stream on the one channel because it exists, and to kind of have it as a backup for the show. But I don't know. Should I keep streaming on both channels? Maybe I should turn the other channel into something else. Could turn the channel into something else at this point. All right, well, so let's get into it. I asked the robot, something like, what are the tools that you'd recommend for QA content creation to a I did qualify it with something. I closed the window, but I qualified it with something like competent and growing content creator. Sometimes we focus these things on the beginner, but not always, right? Not everybody's a beginner, and beginning tactics don't work for everybody. Often, basic techniques are all you need to get advanced level results, but there's also something to be said for just having a conversation to people who are not at the basic level anymore, acknowledging that they've been in the game for a while. All right, and episode 1757 of the show. So just putting that out there because we seen Bob the other day, who helped start this show 1,700 episodes ago. All right, so creating high-quality Second Amendment content in 2024 requires a mix of tools that enhance video production, content management, social media engagement, and audience analytics. So the video production, I think, is evident. You can become pretty comfortable with video over time, and I don't know if somebody wants to say how long it took them to get comfortable with video, but I think it's pretty common for people to be able to pick up a phone at this point and get a video recorded, especially vertical. It seems like anybody can record vertical, but even horizontal, when people are paying, hear more attention to it and want to make it horizontal, a lot of people are able to, handle that no problem. Phones pick up most of the slack, as far as anything quality wise. The phones, just as long as you have to do is point your phone at it most of the time and just have the awareness to push the button. Content management, now that's a massive piece. Content management, the content is one thing. Getting it up onto somewhere is another thing. Managing it is completely different. The strategy on what to create content for is a whole other thing. How to get your ass to where the content is, or get the content, or get something to make content with, that's a whole nother level. All that management is a big part of what this is all about. And because that is overwhelming, and because that isn't easy, and because it isn't free, that it takes time, if not your money, to do a lot of that stuff. It certainly takes money to do it easily. I'm assuming that's the big hurdle for most people. Then you got your social media engagement, and that can be a burden. It can be the funnest part of the thing for you, depending on the person and your audience. You can, if you brought a bunch of snooty champagne lovers around and you like to drink beer, then you may have created a social media engagement that's a burden, right? So, and then you got audience analytics. Why is that word so hard to say? I think a lot of people disregard the analytics because, one, you don't get them right away. They take a while before they even start showing up, and nobody explains them really. And I don't know. It's kind of like counting your fish. Just because you got a bunch of fish doesn't mean you fish good, but I guess it kind of does. But doesn't mean it's the only way to fish. Maybe that's the way to say it. Just because you come back with a bunch of fish doesn't mean if everybody else followed your recipe, they'd come back with a bunch of fish. Maybe that's the way to say it. So analytics can be frustrating, but I've been noticing specialization. We may have a need for somebody out there that can analyze, that has the ability to deal with analytics for people that can't do this. The same way that we have people that can help edit. The same way we have people that create intros or logos or things like that for folks that don't want to have to deal with all that. Just describe what you're looking for to somebody who can do it or does like to do it. And we could do the same for analytics, really, or have groups or collaborative attentions paid to these things, because we do miss a lot of this stuff at our peril. Okay, so that was a great summary. Thanks, Robot. And it essentially may not be all inclusive here, but I only have X amount of time to spend on these shows. So if you notice something that's missing from what the robot thought about here, or if something came to mind when you heard tools for 2.8 content creation in 2024, and it's not in this list, feel free to shout it out so we can add it or chat about it. All right, so then let's dig into the first one here. We got the video production, has a couple of 3 sections to it. and they get pretty specific, so I'm not going to get all the specific, but they would say cameras and accessories. They suggest you have a mirrorless camera with 4K capabilities. I think Chris uses one of those, so he can, if he's got interested, to say something on that. I have a phone, and I've only ever had a phone, and my phone that I'm currently using is Pink Panther's old phone. And I have no idea how many phones Pink is past the one that he gave me. He actually gave me like 4 phones, and I'm using 2 of those constantly. And then another hand-me-down phone from another guy. So this is a thing, having a nice camera. And if I had a mirrorless camera, I could add a couple of $100 a week maybe to my skill set or whatever, because there are opportunities with that I've discovered. I just haven't bought a camera. But a mirrorless camera is essentially the large form factor camera with interchangeable lenses, and that gives you the ability, just like in a real camera or the old-fashioned film cameras. You could get a snapshot. You could get a bunch of little tiny cameras that had like autofocus lenses or infinitely focused lenses, and you could just snap pictures. You get pretty decent results. But when you can zoom and when you can do wide angle and you can do everything else, put filters on your lenses and shrouds and covers and stuff, you can really play with the light and understand the light and get much richer, more colorful and more like useful pictures. That being said, it's a lot of expensive gear to carry around too, so there's that level on it. Then it says GoPro. The next thing is the GoPro, and so essentially an action camera, great for action shots and dynamic filming. I don't even know anymore. There's definitely, I know Snob, if he's out there, uses a GoPro quite a bit. I don't know if they film anymore just with it. You think even Gizzard had a GoPro for a little while when they were evolving as whatever you want to say, like content creators. I remember for a while they were going to Tulsa and the museum. They were, I'm almost positive they used the GoPro. Hey, buddy. He went in the car twice today. He was in the van twice today. Once in the morning to drive around, and then again later to go drive around again. So he's exhausted. That's a lot of supervising. He monitors what everybody else drives around, and as long as it makes sure that I'm driving right. So he puts a lot of effort into supervising when he's driving. And then he goes in the back and runs around. So Chris uses a Pixel 8 for all my B-roll. Is that a phone? And photos. I use a Sony ZV-1 and DJI Pocket 3 for everything else. I rarely use my DSLR. Oh, so what's a Sony Z1? I guess I could have put that on the screen. Why do I have this? I have this like all the way around, almost behind me for some reason today. I lost one of my monitors because my co-host somehow ruined my monitor. So working on 2 monitors. I have no idea what I'm doing. So let's see. So I can't copy and paste that, but I guess I can just type it in here. Sony. Oh, okay. So this isn't a DS. I would have called this a mirrorless or a DSLR. I don't know what to call this then. I'm just going to look at images of it. Oh, it's pricey. I'll keep an eye out for one of these then. But I don't really find stuff this cool at my places that I find stuff. But yeah, I would have called this a mirrorless. This isn't a mirrorless, I guess. And then, right, so, and then Foss is saying use a faux pro. The GoPros are expensive. Yeah, I have 2 little cheap GoPro-ish, like action cameras. I just say action cameras. I don't even know that GoPros are so good. I mean, I definitely know people that use them and they can tell you better than I can, but I just know that I hear people complain about them too. And if you're going to complain about something, I'd much rather spend like $12 than whatever amount of money the GoPro costs. I really don't. I traded once for a GoPro, so I have a very old GoPro. Didn't use it ever, so now I only get the little cheap ones. But I like the idea that they can go, they're rugged, and then they can go places underwater and stuff with those cases and things. That I like. But this is the thing. They're about to go into audio here in a second. So I'm going to say, in addition to the action cameras, I'm really enjoying the concept, or at least the potential, of the 360 cameras, where they film everything all everywhere. You get giant file sizes, but you can really play with that a lot. It's really neat. I mean, obviously it's not for everything, but and then since we're in cameras, I'm going to say a drone. I don't know, Chris, I think, is on my side. I would say that in 2024, having a drone in your inventory um, opens up a lot. If not, I mean, it's not necessary, I guess, because I'm not going to say that. But I mean, and you don't have to get a fancy one, I guess, but just definitely get a cheap one. Get something a little bit better than a toy, or get a toy that's nice so that you can really play with it, because a toy is garbage compared to a real one because of the GPS positioning. Essentially, when they're real, you put them somewhere and they just stay there. And that means the camera footage, even if it's cruddy, is going to come out. Like, you're going to get the footage you wanted. And that's the difference between a cheap one and a toy. The toys just are toys. They fly around. It's like a remote control car. You're spending most of your time just keeping it in the air. And if you get any footage from it, it looks all shaky, like somebody who ate and drank too much coffee was holding the camera. But if you get a decent one, you can get an idea if it's something if you want to add to your inventory. But again, in 2024, we have the ability to get up and over. Obviously, there's some restrictions, but if you can add that to your inventory along with a 360, I think there's some real potential there for adding to the mix that others just haven't, or others haven't. So funny. Chris says, I do use my GoPros on my hat for point of view. I just brought an Insta 360, but I'm learning how to incorporate it in editing software. Is a pain to learn. Oh, I didn't even think about the editing software. Yeah, I imagine it is a new learning curve, because the Insta 360 is a 360, right? You're saying you bought times 4? You bought 4 of those Insta 360s? That's crazy. If you stick 4 of those on top of each other, do they start to see inside of each other and then you see backwards in time? That'd be pretty cool. If you put a 360 at a right angle to another 360 that's at a right angle to another 360, everything's going to start to curve around those 360s, and you'll have seen backwards in time. You could film what happened yesterday over again. Anyway, so then they say go, or some kind of microphones, wireless microphones. I'm going to definitely let other people have conversations about this, because I just don't respect microphones as much as other people do. But somewhere will, or the lines will converge at some point where technology will get to the point where we don't need it anymore. And that's, I rely on that. I just assume that my phones are good enough. And maybe people that have good ears just don't listen to my stuff, that don't come around. Maybe the reason that other channels are giant is because they have better microphones. But yeah, there's so much stuff you can carry around and so much money you can spend on stuff. Microphones just never got it to me, or never became a high enough thing for me. But that's just me. I know a lot of people disagree with me. And like I say, I'll have conversations with people about microphones, and they use them all the time, so they can give you good advice on them. I guess it is called the X4. I would like to get one. I've seen people put them on their van or on their trucks, so I want one on my van. I want to put one up. I don't know where to put it. Maybe above the driver's side, so I can just grab it, I guess. But you stick them on like a antenna, essentially, so they're up in the air. I think that would be super cool to have when I was doing the road trips and stuff. Let's see. So then we get, because essentially it gives you the footage to the potential to look at any direction when you're driving or something. Really neat. So the next thing it gets into under video production is editing software, and it gets into 3 different types of editing software. I'm going to skip all that because it's all essentially preference. I might like one, but my computer can't handle it. My computer may have come with one, or I got one for free, but I might not like it. I might be using the free one and, be willing to deal with stuff because I don't want to pay for it. I've done all those things before. I'm sure we can have endless debates on that, or endless conversations. And that's the fun part about 2024. Dive into whatever it is you're going to get into, because you're not the only one. There's other people out there. More than like, you're going to find other people that'll, encourage you or give you feedback or help or coaching on whatever it is you do choose. If you got a Mac, you're limiting yourself to whatever works on a Mac. If you got a Windows, you're limiting yourself to whatever works on a Windows. The good news is most of the software works on both, but it's going to work a little differently on one or the other. So obviously that's the difference we've always had. So it's just one of the conditions that we just have right now as far as computers and phones and stuff. Now, the thing that the robot missed here for video production is in 2024, so much of the stuff is vertical in short form that not including something like CapCut, I think it's called, or one of the other little, use it with your thumbs on your phone type of thing, isn't correct. They should have, instead of debating between 3 softwares that are super powerful for editing video on a computer, they should have included, that concept, super powerful video editors, which are fine. Like I'm saying, definitely understand one of the big video editors so that you're comfortable enough to get in there. Just the other day, I broke a video in half. I was filming and I just kept hitting pause, record, pause, because I want to edit it. And then halfway through, my tripod fell over and knocked the camera on the ground and the camera shut off. So now I have, half of a video. I filmed the rest of it. Now I had to go into the editor and just cram the 2 pieces together. And I did it crudely, but at least I understand, how to get in there and do it. I don't have to be all fancy about it, unless you want to be, feel free. But just be able to get in there and tape things back together, or, glue things back together, or chop things apart, take out the part where something happened. That makes it so much easier for you. You're going to save yourself a lot of time. I suppose, well, I was to explain, like some people try to do take after take after take, for example, until they get it right. And then they don't have to edit anything. Or you could just do it and know that you're going to be editing and, cut away all the pieces that are good or bad, I guess, and leave the good. What's going to be better for you and your people that you're working with, especially if you're working with people. Some people will get driven nuts if they have to do the same thing over and over until it's perfect, and then, have to rely on that one perfect piece. There's no other option. Some people like that. They think that's the best way to do it because it's real. Some people like, just doing it raw, having whatever you get, then going into the editing room and chopping it up. Some people consider that, the ultimate, because you get the best. It's like having a buffet. You get a little bit of everything and you can go back for seconds if you need to because you got so much raw footage. So there's no great way to do it. And the results are going to be a little bit different as far as the audience reaction. And that's when you get into analytics, and that's when you get into understanding your options and what your tools can do, right? All right, so we're really I'm taking too long on the beginning here, so we'll keep going. It says graphics and animation, and it gives you some options. I'm really glad it has Blender in here. But I'm going to switch it from Adobe After Effects. I personally think you should do Adobe Express, which is kind of like After Effects, except smaller and easier. It's more of like you can use it on your phone with your thumbs type of a software, but it works on a computer too. It's part of the Adobe package. And I think you can get Adobe Express by itself if you don't want the whole package. Blender is free, and Blender, man, everybody should at least try Blender unless you just hate doing things, because Blender is essentially, how do you explain Blender? Blender starts with just a 3-dimensional open world, and it lets you create lines and angles and flat planes, and then use clay and straight lines and rulers. It's like if you had the ultimate DIY environment. You can just have this empty environment that you can create in. Once you've created stuff, you can skin it, give it textures and colors, and most every movie you've ever seen that has animation in it, you can do in Blender. Like, it's just can do just about anything you've ever seen on a screen before. And it's all free, and it's all open source, which means that every part of the code is open for people to see and work with and understand. The main thing is understand, so that when somebody builds a plugin or something, some additional feature to it, everybody has a chance to see what's going on there, so that if something happens, very smart people can go, hey, look, this is conflicting with that. And then you get just a really great kind of environment since so many people are into it. And that means that it just evolves faster and faster and becomes more and more powerful. So the software can do amazing, amazing things. And what's neat is once you've created whatever it is you're going to create in there, you can export it as all different ways, as just images or pictures or as videos and animations. You can add it as layers so that you can add it to your animations. So think of like an explosion or like words that break apart and come back together, or some kind of dragon happens and smoke comes out and it splashes out of the water. I mean, anything you can think of, you can create in Blender and then export it either as its own file or as a layer that you would put on your own file, like as a mask or as some kind of a background. And then you can do anything you can think of with graphics or words or anything. So most any movie that you can think of, you could make in Blender. If it wasn't already made in Blender, you could make it in Blender because Blender emulates everything else that's out there. So it's super cool. I mean, if I had all the money in the world, I would probably be just sitting around playing in Blender. And you can kick the files out of Blender and put them right into a 3D printer. So if you made a little cartoon character in Blender that was 3-dimensional, pop it out into a 3-dimensional file and print it. So it's super neat. All right. So is it going to help you with Second Amendment content? Yeah, honestly, I think it can, because how many more people do we need doing the same old? But how many people do we have, or how often do we reference, what was it called? Schoolhouse Rock. Schoolhouse Rock was a wadded up piece of paper with arms and legs singing on the steps, but everybody remembers it and it's got impact for generations. So I think what you can create in Blender has the potential to have impact for generations. And if you did that in the focus on 2A, I personally believe that we're struggling with the frustration of unawareness. People that don't like guns don't know, and because of that, they're abused, they're used, they're exploited. Their understanding is exploited by the antis, who understand that they can say dumb stuff, get those people to vote, and keep us engaged. That keeps us disengaged from where other places they're. It's an advantage for the folks that are playing the big game. And if we want to get out of that cycle, awareness and understanding is going to get us there faster than any kind of fight or any kind of debate or any kind of lawsuit or any kind of any other bullshit. So understanding and learning Blender and then applying those techniques. What if you just, let's think of Riding Shotgun with Charlie. You know how long I've been telling Riding Shotgun with Charlie that he needs an animated intro to his show? So if you don't know, Riding Shotgun with Charlie is, is it 5 years old now? 7? What am I saying? It's 5 years old. 7 years old now, I think. It's a project from Charlie and Charlie Cook in Massachusetts, who started to, as a form of Second Amendment activism, he started to interview Second Amendment activists and people in the gun community while driving. And he calls it Riding Shotgun with Charlie. He drives. So what he did is he started where he lived and met a few people and had a couple of introductions. And then as he travels for school or for his work as a school teacher or as an activist to different events and things, he'll sneak people away for a minute or two. Usually it's like a 20-minute. I think the longest show might have been an hour, but I think usually about 20 minutes worth of driving around. And he's usually in some rental car or something, or he borrows a car when he's at a place because it's not always his own vehicle. But he brings a little package with him that has all the cameras and stuff. And then, he records the shows while he's on location, and then he edits them and turns them into Riding Shotgun with Charlie episodes. It's a cool concept, and he's successful, and he's been doing it for a long time. And I've been telling him, you need to have an animated intro so he doesn't have to say that intro every time. And then, it could be a little car driving around or whatever, and have it pop up all the different cities it's been in or something, or maybe, something catchy, the same way that every animated logo, all the things that every animated logo is for. So if somebody was into Blender, they could put that together, make a caricature of Charlie that he likes, and then animate it, and then do all the things we just mentioned there. So that's just one example of something that just Blender alone could do to add to the mix here. So it takes us next to content management and collaboration. So let me quickly check. We got about half an hour. Content management and collaboration. And I asked the robots the tools we would use for these, for content creation. And when you get to content management, it came up with, I guess, some specifics again. But, again, as time goes on, we're going to get different tools, or even if there are major tools that people use over time, there's going to be preferences and just, what people like. So it says content management systems, and it puts WordPress in there. So I'm not quite sure how they're thinking of that. But essentially, it's correct. Where websites are a way to manage your content. But there's so much that WordPress can do that they might be thinking about something else, because I'm not confused where they get in the collaboration. I guess they're just thinking of the WordPress as a website, and they're just coming up with an interesting way of saying it. It says Ghost, a modern open source CMS tailored for publishing. Never heard of it. So I don't know if I would recommend anymore an independent system, because you've got things like Substack, and I guess ultimately you got Facebook and that kind of thing, the large ones. But you've got smaller ones like Substack would be not necessarily catered to a specific niche, but to the person who's not interested in the clutter of Facebook, I suspect, and then most interested in being able to directly follow, the same way you would follow a podcast, like directly follow bloggers. And WordPress is, at this point, much beyond just blogging, even though that's where it started. So I'm just not sure if I would recommend definitely not only, but even spending a majority of your time coming up with a new management system of your own website. It's bad enough with WordPress. I mean, WordPress is excellent. There's nothing, I would recommend highly just use WordPress and be done with it. Of course, people are going to have different opinions on that. That's fine. But even if everybody agreed with me and went, okay, yeah, let's just use WordPress. There's like a billion ways to use WordPress. That's why I can comfortably say, yeah, go use WordPress, because it's infinite as far as its options and things. So to suggest that even though WordPress is infinite and it works well and it's established itself over all this time and it's not bothering anybody and it just does its job, we should get another one? Like, okay, I guess, like, get another one, but not in 2024. Not a Second Amendment advocate. I'm not going to recommend you just waste your time doing all that. If you want to do it as your hobby and then you want to apply that going forward, but I don't think this is something we need in an election year for sure. So Robot doesn't know that it's an election year, I guess. I'll keep going to collaboration tools. It recommends 3 that I won't get into because I don't know anything about them. I've heard of Notion, though, and people recommend it often, and I see people rolling their eyes. I'm familiar with Slack. I guess technically it's a little bit too tech, I think, for what we're talking about. I don't know what Trello is, or Trello. So if anybody knows what these are, if you're watching this or if you're reading the blog post or something in the future, I'm not going to get into them, but I'm going to say collaboration is I don't want to say it's the priority or it's the ultimately important thing, but I kind of want to say it's the priority or the ultimately important thing. Doesn't matter how good any of us are, how well we succeed. Think of anybody that's succeeding out there. Did they win it for us? Like, is Colorado safe now because of somebody succeeded? Is like, we don't have to worry about Massachusetts anymore because somebody was so good at this stuff? Like, no, we're never gonna, and we wouldn't want that. Would we want like, oh, so-and-so got so many hits or so many views or so many likes or whatever that now the Second Amendment argument is over? Like, that's valid. Like, no one would even want that. So the idea of collaboration, should it be the goal of the Second Amendment organizations at the national level? I don't know. Maybe we need a national level organization that's sole job is collaboration. Because at this point, we have some that are for education, some that are for lobbying, and then whatever you call it when they just do lawsuits all the time. We have a lot of that. So, again, are we going to lawsuit our way out of everything, or are we going to are we better off if we got a bunch of people working together? I'd really like to see something to this collaboration side. We've definitely seen successes and failures with collaboration, but overall, I'm pretty sure it's going to be more successes. And even when there's a failure, what happens? People learn from the failure and end up typically with a couple of 3 successes that happen. Oh, this didn't work, but guess what? This will work, that'll work, and that'll work. All right, we'll keep moving to the social media and marketing segment here. So how many segments? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. Well, 5 of them. So we're getting into the third one. No, sorry, the second one. No, it is the third one, but it is this one. So social media and marketing, social media management. I don't know. That's something that's sort of like, how do you fish or how do you play guitar? How do you like to cook, your spaghetti? Everybody's going to have their own tastes on this. Everyone's going to have their own experiences, and everyone's going to have their own preferences, I guess. So this one would be an interesting one to talk about. They recommend Hootsuite and Buffer, which I'm nowhere near. I haven't used either of them enough to know if they're perfect. Well, they're not perfect for this. Or if we need something created, but social media management, or if something will be created, because there's some APIs. There's the interfaces with the platforms, and that's the problem. You can want to be able to schedule an Instagram post all day and night, but if Facebook doesn't want you to, then guess what? You're not doing it. You may love to be able to schedule YouTube right now, but if YouTube decides, that's being abused, or we just don't feel like it doesn't work with our plans anymore, guess what? You're not scheduling anymore. So the management side of it is, I wouldn't say it's turbulent waters, but it's rough enough waters that it changes enough that I haven't been satisfied with any, what are they calling it? A scheduler for any length of time. Now, if someone can tell me that they've found schedulers that work cross-platform, that they're able to manage their social media, awesome. But typically the best social media management, at least as far as I'm understanding it, in 2024 is still human beings who write stuff on calendars and then engage at certain times. And the people that, do that, well, you do it either one of 2 ways. You do it, or 3 ways. You do it yourself, or you hire somebody here in the United States to do it, or you hire somebody outside the United States to do it. And either all of those have a cost, pretty high cost, either in your own time, your own security, or your own cost, because it can cost a lot of money for either of those. And is it worth it? I don't know. There's a lot of people who live on social, and it'll suggest that this is critical. Every once in a while, you get to talk to somebody who doesn't live on social, and they'll tell you that they're living a happy life and stuff, and they just don't know anything that's going on daily. They know the stuff that gets trickled down to them, I guess. So it depends on, where you want your audience, or what audience you're looking for, I guess. So then we get to analytics tools. I think we're talking about analytics before, but the tools, I think that's, I'll just mention it, that, I guess it's a skill set to have. But as far as the tools, Google, easy, no brainer. This other one, never heard of. I'm trying to think if there are other tools. I find tools, and most of my tools have been found in other programs. I've talked about Podbean. We've moved all of our podcasts to Podbean, just like fishing or cooking or playing a guitar. There's different ways of running your podcasts. And at first, we would take the audio, put it on our own server, send that up as a feed to everybody, to each of the different platforms out there that are streaming podcasts. Once they have your feed, they turn it into whatever they want to, and now it becomes a part of their podcast. But in order to get it to iTunes or iHeartRadio, or I don't know, all the other ones that are out there, you have to give them something first. You have to give them some audio files with some other files, like the picture and the text and the image, or what do you call it, the title and the description and all that stuff. So you have to give that to them, and you can do that through a feed. And you can create that feed yourself, which is what I used to do, or you can go to someplace who does that for you. And pretty much most people do that, I suppose. And that can cost something, which it now does. It costs me, or it's very crude and you have to figure it all out, and it's more hassle than it's worth. And that's because of the, I was mentioned before, the APIs, the platforms. If they just left every door open, everybody come in there and mess everything up. So they essentially want to make sure you know what you're doing before they open up a door. So before they accept your feed, they want to make sure everything is perfect so that you're not screwing up their works. So there's always that happy medium between what the internet's expecting and what the platforms want and what you can get up there effectively. All right, so that's the tools, I guess, can help you with, or I mean, the analytical tools can help you with. I guess what I was getting at is the analytical tools that those platforms provide can help you with your overall understanding of your reach. So there's no way I'm going to be able to cast on YouTube, turn it into a podcast that's audio, put it out there on iTunes and iHeartRadio and whatever. In fact, I just noticed that I was just saying, hey, it's interesting that iHeartRadio is the most, or that iTunes was the biggest group of listeners. And then, I'll be honest, the next time I looked over at the numbers, it was some platform I'd never even heard of before. So if you want to, anybody who's listening to this, feel free to leave a comment. Go jump over to our YouTube or someplace and leave a comment with what platform you listen to our podcast on. Because anyway, I guess what I was saying is you're never going to get all the analytics. You're never going to know what this words I'm saying, who they reach, because YouTube can't know. YouTube only put it out as a video. But once I take it as audio and put it on other platforms, now those platforms are going to have to report to me. And there's just no clearinghouse, no funnel, no way until maybe somewhere in the future we have robots do this for us. But right now, there's no way for anything to just tell us, when you did this podcast, it went out to this many places. But I guess, like I'm saying, you can use multiple tools and combine their results and get a pretty good idea of how much reach you're getting. All right. My co-host is definitely sound asleep here, doing lots of calculations for future analytic conversations. Next, we're getting into SEO tools. I'd really like to own both of these, but these are expensive. So if anybody wants to talk about these sometime, let me know. Most people ignore search engine stuff because, I don't know, it's easy. It's super hard, and there's people that are wailing on it. Companies pay people to wail on this. That doesn't mean that you can't win. There's just nothing saying that just because people are throwing a bunch of money in it. If they're throwing a bunch of money in it to have their website hit the top, they only have one website. So they're not paying to have 13 websites hit the top. They're paying to hit their one. So unless you are afraid to fight against one, then fight. They can spend $1 million and be one. You can spend $13 and replace them, and they'll be number two. It literally can be that easy. So most of the time, it's all about just making sure, sort of like the government, it's just making sure that everything is as correct and proper as possible so that the robots who make the decisions can read your answers quicker. And sometimes it's that easy. It's often that easy. If you've ever gone and searched on the internet and discovered something that said it was going to tell you what you're looking for, but found out when you got there it was full of garbage or nothing, like a link farm or something useless, that's somebody who understands the system and got their mechanism set up, or got it set up so that the mechanism can deliver their page. So anyway, everybody's able to do that. It's not like just because somebody else is doing it, you can't do it. In fact, a lot of times the people that are getting paid to do it are trying to do it for as many things as possible because nobody wants to pay for this. So if they do pay for it, they're paying a little bit for a lot. And the people that do effort on this stuff are going to put the minimal effort in and move on to the next thing because they have to do as many as possible. So anyway, all I'm saying is when you really look at this stuff, this is I'm not saying it's critical, but it's definitely a low-hanging fruit that we could grab because nobody pays attention to it, and it's pretty easy. Let's see. So then we'll get into community engagement and growth. I think for some people, this can be some of the biggest piece of their project. And for other people, this isn't even a part of their project, which is why we're better off as a group of people instead of one or two. Keep checking to see where we're at with the Cape Gun Work show coming up here. You may or may not be able to hear that my co-host is actually snoring right now. He's actually asleep during this whole show. All right, email marketing. We're going to have differing conversations on this one. I'm not a big fan of email. It definitely has a place and it's useful, but I could be convinced that it's useless as well because I don't like it and it's annoying and it costs me money. ConvertKit, I never heard of. They're saying to use MailChimp. I've had people have good success, or I've had some people say they've had success, but then I've had people say they haven't with MailChimp, so it's just about even with me. And I haven't heard anybody say that any of the other ones are better, or I'd be using one of the other ones. So essentially, they all have their negative issues, and it probably reverts to some technical thing that I'm not paying attention to, but essentially an email newsletter needs to go out to a lot of people, and just about everything about every mail system out there wants to stop stuff that's going to a lot of people because that's spam. That is unwanted advertising typically. So it does take some effort to get what do you call them, newsletters through to people, and it's a completely different science to interact with someone who asked for your email, but then probably it isn't interested in reading your email. Getting those people to look up can be a challenge. And is it worth it? I don't know. Do we have a history of like email campaigns that change the world? I don't know. They probably help. Let's see. Try not to bitch about what happened at NRA, but could have added something there about NRA. What would have happened if a bunch of people were emailed, hey, bring your teal blue shirts to the NRA meeting, wear a teal blue shirt to the NRA general meeting. Even if they would have just worn teal blue shirts to the show floor, what influence would that have had on the board on Monday and Tuesday? But anyway, I'll not commenting on that. Community platforms, Discord and Patreon. Everybody loves Discord. I hate Discord. There's another one called what's it called? Gilded. That is better. And it's essentially the same layout, but the people aren't angry over there and they're not scared of everything. So they leave you alone and they're normal. So if you want to check out one that's better, check out one called Gilded. Here's the bad part about Gilded. It's made for video gamers also. So there's a bunch of swords and dragons, I suppose, around every corner, but not really. Anyway, Discord is essentially just a large forum-based thing that allows people to create little rooms and then have conversations in those rooms that are text-based, so they can happen over time and that they are archived. So what happens in a server type of conversation is different. It's kind of like almost like being in a text chat with someone, but it's everyone. So it's a lot like the message boards back in the day, a lot like the is that what we call them? Yeah, we just call them message boards back in the day. And the only difference is they're closed to the public. And that's why I don't like Discord. Everything in Discord happens off air away from everybody, which is why it's so creepy and angry and weird and pointless. So if we're talking about engaging growth and everything, like, come on, can you even make a Discord page private? Or I mean public? On Gilded, you can make a page public. So if, let's say you have a bunch of conversations about ways to, empower and grow and strengthen and change, and it all happens behind closed doors and no one knows about it, then did it even happen? But on a Gilded server, you could do all that conversation and come up with all those answers and then have it be archived forever because it's public. And then it offers Patreon as a community platform. I couldn't agree more. Patreon is an awesome platform, and it does have a community aspect to it. People that like to support entrepreneurial effort, people that like to support small things that are going to grow. People that like to support things that they're fans of. People that like to support, I don't know, out of guilt or sympathy or compassion or whatever other reasons people like to support. We live in a capitalist country where our power is our money in a lot of ways. And one way that we can distribute that power, distribute that money, is to use a platform like Patreon, which takes very little compared to a lot of the other things we've talked about as far as cut from the transaction. So if you give $1 to somebody, a smaller cut is taken from Patreon than all but just a few, all but just really directly sending the person money is probably the least expensive way to give somebody money, because then just the bank transaction that they withdraw the money from could even possibly cost them anything. But Patreon is very little, for like less than 10%, I believe. I could be wrong because I think it's changed over time, but it's definitely less than the 30 to 40% that some of the other options can offer. And that can be frustrating. You give somebody $1 and they're only getting 60 cents. It's frustrating for the person who's trying to use those funds because they didn't get a full $1, and what are they supposed to ask for, $1.60 now? Like, how are they supposed to really, keep people interested in participating at a manageable level? But that being said, I think all of them are good, or potentially good, if they can allow a community to grow and get together. Community platforms can also be the scheduled shows that happen. I keep pointing that out, that people who bring people together are community, right? They are community builders, technically. So the community platforms can be YouTube, Instagram, and the rest, where people can go live, and people can, I guess, go live on a consistent basis, and then people can schedule themselves to be there. And what happens when 8 people schedule themselves to be at the same place? That's a community. If it's 18 or if it's 80, it's a community. Live streaming, they suggest to learn a couple of live streaming tools that I don't like, that cost money and are old. So I like one that's old-ish, kind of medium old, and costs money, but you can also get a free version of it. But live streaming is I'd say, if you don't incorporate live streaming, that's fine, but you should be able to live stream. I'd say it's a necessary as video, or it's as necessary as understanding audio. But again, I understand if somebody doesn't want to live stream for whatever project, until you get to a point where you're comfortable, and then live stream, because it shows people that you're legitimate and you can actually have a conversation about something. If you've got to prepare everything and everything has to be written out as a script first, people have a tendency to not give it as much whatever, because it's some kind of presentation rather than whatever is actually going on. Legal and security, interesting. Content protection. So services like whatever help you handle takedown requests. I don't know what that's all about. And then cybersecurity. I don't know about that. I think this is more of a factor that some of these quote unquote security services out there, what's the word? They sponsor a lot of different online conversations in all sectors and all realms. So I think this is probably just the robot. When it was scraping everything, started to see this stuff being incorporated when content creation came along. So I'm going to dismiss it. I mean, if you're, I don't know, people run their computers in different ways. You see somebody who drives their car normal, you're not going to go up and lecture them. But if you see somebody that's got a whole bunch of dents in their car and they're got all kinds of nails sticking out of their tires, you may go up and say, hey, don't drive so close to the gutters, stay out of the curbs, and you may not get hit so often, or you may not smash your car up so often. It's kind of like that with computers. If you're getting viruses all the time, that's not normal. Like, normal people don't get viruses. Most people don't ever get a virus. So it's probably the way you're running your computer. And it doesn't mean that you're reckless or that you're doing weird stuff. It just means you don't understand something. You're leaving your window down. Like, if you're having to change the upholstery in your car every time it rains, you may not have your windows up. Like, it may not be a big issue. It just might be you'd have to learn to roll windows. How rude of him to start his show when I'm still corking him. All right, well, luckily we're towards the end of this. additional resources, Skillshare. Ugh. And Udemy. How about YouTube? So they're going to recommend 2 places where you can get specific, either technical information or classes that are prepared. I get it. I understand it. If it's your style, go for it. There's a lot of people that make money over there, and they're offering a lot of times the same information, literally the same information that they offer for free on YouTube. So I would definitely check out your free resources first, including the collaborations, right? Including, why would I learn to do something that I don't even like to do when I know 4 people who really like to do it and they've got time to help me with it? So, yeah, learn how to learn. So learn that you can learn so easily in 2024 using free services like the different online videos and stuff. But then there are places like, well, I don't get paid to send you to these, so I'll let other people pay you to send you there, or get paid to send you there. But there are other places that are specifically for niche specific. Now, that being said, I can use this as an opportunity to gripe that our national level organizations bring in tens of millions of dollars a year, and we don't have an academy or a school or any kind of online setup that tells us how to be better activists. How hard would it be to do that? We have a soapbox and a ballot box and some other boxes, right? Everybody likes to jump to them other boxes like it's so cool or whatever. How about we just we encourage and empower each other, or use those, or let those organizations create some things to make that happen. That being said, I'll end it because Toby's live over here. Check it out. He does a great job of hosting a show. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. If you're listening as a podcast, welcome and thanks. Give us a thumb up or a heart or whatever the like is on the platform that you listen to us on. And feel free to jump over to the YouTubes, one of our channels where we post this, and give us some feedback. And click the wrong button. And
this is Earl Benson reporting from downtown Topeka, where Gizzard Gary is rampaging through the city. Authorities have asked the public to stay indoors. They believe he will tire soon and need a nap. Gizzard Gary can normally be seen on Foul Territory Friday nights at 7 p.m. Central. Wednesday, 8 p.m. for the channel members chat. Stay safe and give him the bird. Earl Benson signing off.
GearWebsites.com is your source for firearms-based playing cards and books. We also have mugs, shirts, and posters with designs that we've made live. Of course, we have patches. Every Friday is Free Patch Friday. We appreciate your support. Thank you for shopping at GearWebsites.com.
But basically, he applied for his LTC, was denied on suitability because of a prior